All right, Andy Boone is on. Welcome to the podcast, Andy. Thanks so much for coming on. How you doing?
Good, Dr. Keith. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Today's business podcast. I'm excited to have you on, Andy. A little background about you. Andy's a native Virginian with deep roots in the local community. He co-founded the College Crew, a successful landscaping company, to pursuing a passion for real estate. Andy's always been driven by a desire to give back. He's a dedicated real estate agent who also goes the extra mile to help his clients achieve their dream of home ownership. Beyond business, Andy has a heart for sports and has spent time training both children with disabilities and high school athletes, shaping them into stronger athletes and individuals. So excited to get to learn more about you, Andy. So welcome to the Business Podcast. Thanks for coming on,
I
man.
appreciate it. It means a lot. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I love, Andy, that you were born and raised here in Virginia. So first, I just want you to kind of give us and our viewers a little more background about yourself, growing up here in Virginia, and kind of how you got into the College Crew and what you're currently doing.
Yeah, so like you just mentioned, I grew up in the Virginia area, went to Oakton High School,
Go
grew up in
Cougars.
Go Cougars, baby.
Jasmine, I
Uh,
love that.
yeah, there we go. Grew up in the Falls Church area, and then we moved to the Oakton School District when I was in seventh grade because my brother was a really good football quarterback, and Falls Church High School wasn't the best at the time. They're great now, but they weren't at the time, and he was trying to be the starting quarterback. So we transferred to the Oakton School District. Went there, met a lot of great people. Awesome school, awesome area. And then I went on to George Mason University. Again, great place. Met a lot of awesome people, and that's kind of what started this awesome idea of the College Crew. Me and my brother, with college schedules, it's hard to like find time when you can actually work those like 2 hour windows where it's like, oh, I don't have class, I want to make some money.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So we were like, well, we can't get a traditional job. We used to be servers at restaurants, and it just wasn't our favorite. It wasn't great, so we were like, well, let's do something different, and we didn't want to work for someone else. So my brother was like, we were actually driving around after class one day. He was like, dude, they got bags of mulch outside their house, let's ask them if we can lay it. And I was like, all right, screw it. So that
Nice.
was like kind of the start. We literally saw some bags in our neighborhood. We asked the guy, we were like, Jimmy was like, what do you think we should quote it? It was like, honestly, we underquoted the heck out of it. It was like probably 50, 60 bags, because we had never quoted projects before. So it's like 50, 60 bags. And Jimmy was like, what if we made $70 each? I was like, I'm in.
Nice.
So that was the start. And that really kind of like springboarded this whole idea of like, all right, maybe we can do this for anyone. And then that's kind of how the idea grew. And we just kept doing it and doing it. And door knocking was really the foundation of how the business started, just knocking on doors. We'd walk by neighborhoods, see if they needed a little pressure washing, some bush trimming, whatever it was for each unique house. That's how we started. And it really kept building and building. And we got into the commercial aspect of it, did some commercial properties, serviced them. But our bread and butter now is the real estate aspect. I help out all my clients with moving, with landscaping, getting their homes ready to sell. So that's been the bread and butter. We still do jobs for returning clients, but we're not door knocking anymore because we have a pretty good foundation. So that's kind of in a nutshell how the College Crew came about and how it parlays into the real estate industry.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into that a little bit later. I think it's such a creative way to do real estate, so I definitely have some questions for you on that. But going back, I think it is nice to have you on the podcast because, as you know, in this area, there's a lot of people that move here for work, right? So since you're from here, Andy, and you've got that perspective, like, do you think growing up in this area kind of instilled that entrepreneurial aspect, like you and your brother just not like, hey, let me grab these bags of mulch and lay these out? Like, where do you think that came from, or how do you feel growing up in Virginia shaped maybe the College Crew business or even your real estate today?
Yeah, so great question. I mean, honestly, growing up in this area, like everyone is doing something, whether it's an internship, whether it's a job, whether it's working for their parents who are super successful. You seldom meet someone who's not getting after it. And I think it's a motivating thing seeing strangers and friends just grinding. And it's like, all right, my buddy's crushing it. Like, I need to start crushing it. And it's like, not that you aren't, but it gives you that extra motivation to be like, if they can do this, I definitely think I can do it. So, like, that self fulfilling prophecy of like, I'm going to go after and get whatever that is just my big motivator. Like, seeing my friends and family crushing it. And from a young age, just like, I got my first job at 12 because I was like, Mom, I want to make money. You know what I mean? I
Oh,
was like, because they raised us right. They're like, we're not going to just give you money. You got to earn it. Like, we'd have to mow the grass. It was like typical chores, and you'd have to earn getting some money. But at a certain age in high school, my mom stopped giving us any money, and so did my dad. They're like, you guys need to get a job. Like, you're 14. Like, if you want to go to prom and a homecoming, like, you're paying for it.
nice.
So we were like, all right, well, I guess we gotta. And that's like what started the whole, like, all right, we wanted to serve, we ref football, wanted to umpire baseball. So whatever it was early on, it didn't matter. We were just trying to make money. That was really the start.
All right, definitely. I love that drive. It definitely sounds like you were a hustler from the beginning. Um, how about your parents? They obviously instilled that within you. Were they, business owners? Kind of what's their background?
Yeah, so my mom was from middle class family. My grandfather was in the Marines. He worked at Amtrak, was a grinder, just hard worker, loved his family. My dad, his family was in the jewelry business. So he was in the jewelry business up until I was like 7 or 8, and then he started his own company, was really successful. Um, but the market and all that didn't really help with it. So he pivoted into the mortgage industry. And again, the market wasn't great in 2010. So he left, and then he came back in about 2015, and he's been crushing it ever since. So just kind of seeing them like do whatever it takes to make a life and a living for our kids was just like something I really appreciated. When it was a bad month for work, they, didn't affect us. They wouldn't let it show us. They would still, you know, take us out to dinner or bring home the typical amount of groceries as they would. We wouldn't know what was going on the outside because they just kept working their butts off. And that was something I truly appreciated. What I'm trying to instill in my children, like, regardless of how hard a month is or a day is or a week is, like, don't show the kids that. Like, talk to your wife about it. You're gonna get through it, but like, we're kids. You don't want to have that affect their lives.
Awesome. So you didn't feel that growing up, the struggle of being a business owner or being an entrepreneur, you've everything was just kind of normal to you, right?
Yeah, no, if it was a bad day in the market and my dad lost X amount of dollars, I would have no idea because he'd be like, "You boys want to go to Chuck E. Cheese?" And I'm like, "Yeah,
Who
like,
doesn't want to go to Chuck E. Cheese? That's
right."
right.
Exactly.
Awesome. So with the, student, being a student at George Mason, starting the college crew, and then, you know, now having your full-fledged company, what was that transition like, going from, just kind of it sounded like it was just kind of a part-time thing just to get some extra cash to now it's obviously a full-time career. What were those challenges like? What was that transition like?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, it was a blessing. So to pivot, I said I graduated from Mason. I did, but before that, I went to West Virginia University for 2 years, and that's where I like really started to hate the serving restaurant industry
Uh-huh.
because there wasn't as many like jobs. So I was like, you know what, I'll just get a serving job. Screw it. And then after like 2 years, I called my brother one day after my sophomore year. I'm like, dude, like, we were just venting to each other. He's like, why don't you just come home, transfer to Mason? I was
Yeah.
like, I'm doing that. So the next fall, took a semester off, worked full time at a roofing company, hated that. And then was Jimmy was like, why don't we just do something ourselves? So my brother was the big driver, and all of our ideas. He was like, we can make money ourselves. Like, I know we're smart enough to do it. So once left the roofing company, went to Mason, and that's kind of, to answer your question, that's kind of when this really blossomed, and it became full time because, again, I love my parents for it. We both paid for our college, so like,
Nice.
that $9,000 semester, like, I had to save up and work for it. And that's we really were, after work, going to do a job, after school going to do a job. Like, it didn't matter if we were starting at 2 in the afternoon or 8 in the morning. We would just work and then go to class, and that's how it went for 2 years. So when college ended, it was great because I didn't have to go to class anymore, and I was like, all right, now I can just full throttle ahead and just get to work and grind. And I loved college. It taught me a lot, and I'm appreciative of my time there. But I feel like now, like, our wings are free. We can, do as we please, set our own schedules, and it's been a blessing.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like Jimmy was a big influence, huh?
Absolutely, man. He's a hell of a brother. Lucky to have him as an older brother.
Yeah. And Jimmy's is he still doing the t-shirts?
So he got out of the branding industry. People and anyone who meets Jimmy, they love him. So he got out of the branding industry because this one guy he met loved him, and he was like, "Dude, you're too good at sales. Like, come work for me." And now Jimmy's selling software for a it's like mortgage backing software. So
Okay.
it's great because he was in the mortgage industry, so now he can sell this software back to lenders, and he knows all the jargon, as opposed to anyone else who didn't work in the mortgage industry. Like, he knows what lenders want to hear. So, you know, again, back to him. He's just a hard ass. Excuse me. He's a hard worker, and he does his thing. That's for sure.
All right. Well, tell us more about kind of what you're doing now with now that you've kind of transitioned from the college crew. What are you I love that it's very creative what you've done with, I guess did your experience in the college crew kind of shape what you're kind of doing now with real estate? Or tell us more about that.
Yeah. So 100%. I mean, like, looking at houses and knowing, like, the curb appeal is huge. Like, when I see a house, I go in it from a contractor's point of view. I'm like, okay, we can do this to boost this. We can go in the house, do this to boost this. So once I really took off into the real estate industry, I'd say 2 years ago. I've been in it for 5, so it's going on 6 in January.
Hmm.
But I'd say 2 years ago is when I really start hitting my stride. In any new business, the first 2, 3 years are a little challenging. You're learning the ins and outs, but 2 years ago is when I really started hitting stride. And to answer your question, the college crew really helped because it showed me, what you need to do to homes to make them beautiful and what clients want you to do to make them better. So, your traditional realtor will be like, all right, this is your punch list you need to do. You need to do, new gutters. You need to paint the shutters. You need to landscape. You need to paint the basement. But me, I will basically do all of it. And if I can't do anything, I have a member on my team that'll do it. So it's like, we don't need to outsource to 5 different companies for all the different jobs and have the homeowner have 5 different people come over, give quotes. And obviously you want to get 2 quotes so you get the best price. So it's like, that's 10 people they're going to end up calling, as opposed to just one person who can take care of everything from A to B or A to Z. They got your back. They already know you. You already have a morale with them. So just like building that trust even more, showing them like, I'm not going to make you go out and do all this extra legwork. I'm going to take the legwork from you. One of my favorite quotes is, under promise, over deliver, and you create a raving fan. Like, that's how you create a raving fan. So, you're not going to give any guarantees out. So in this business, I learned early on, my first year, going through the trials and tribulations, like, I made a promise. I've never used that word ever again because didn't go my promise didn't go as planned because they ended up not getting the house. So I was like, you know what, let's just take that word out of my dictionary. Just under promise, over deliver. And that's how I've been able to create raving fans. And I pride myself off my reviews, and I think I have some pretty good reviews.
Definitely sounds like you provide a lot of value. What are some of the things like homeowners should know about, um, what are some of the, as they're trying to sell their house? What's going to make their house more sellable? What types of things can you do, can your crew do that are going to, you mentioned a couple of them, but what do you think are maybe the three biggest things that homeowners need to do to make their house more desirable, more sellable, and help them get the best value for their property?
Absolutely. So number one is decluttering, organizing, and downsizing. So, I could show you around my house right now, and I'm a victim of it. We all are. I
Right,
mean,
right, right.
you got too much stuff in one room. the biggest thing you can do, it's hard to look at, but is just bear down. Just make it very simple. Make it something that someone can walk into and be like, okay, I can see us doing this and this. If there's 80 things going on the walls and there's so much furniture and stuff in the room, it's overwhelming. So my number one thing I always tell my clients is we're gonna just minimize what you have. We're gonna take stuff out. It's very cheap to rent a storage unit for 1 month. You know, I can almost, I never promise, but I can almost guarantee we're going to have it sold in 1 month. So you're going to be able to dead that storage unit after 1 month. But number one, just downsizing, getting a lot of that furniture out. And then if some of the furniture isn't ideal, like pretty old and rough looking, I have a great stager who will come in, bring in new furniture, make it look pretty. And that's a cost that I will take on. They're hiring me. So I want to take care of them. I'm not going to ask them to spend more money than they're already spending, because obviously we are collecting a fee. So I build all those things into my fees. So number one, downsizing. Number two is making the home like a neutral color. So if you got like blues and greens and purples, all wonderful colors, but not something that's great for selling. You want to make it, the agreeable gray used to be huge a couple years ago, but that's kind of fading out. So just like an off white, something that's easy to look at, just making it very simple. Again, you want to make a home simple. Obviously, when you live in it, you can add all the character you want. But when you're selling it, you want to make it as simple as possible so the next owner can envision what they're going to do with the space. And third, I'm huge on the curb appeal. I mean, we have a property that we're listing in 10 days, and my crew will be over there on Tuesday. We're going to landscape it, add fresh mulch, add some mums. I already had my teammates out there the other weekend to pressure wash everything. So, I mean, the first thing you want to fall in love with is the house, the outside. You're not going to be able to get someone in the door unless they like the outside of the door. So, those are my three biggest things that a seller can do to really add value. And honestly, all three of those things aren't too expensive. So that's why I'm okay with taking on some of the costs. So the only cost that is sometimes costly is the paint. So sometimes I'll ask the clients to take on the cost of, paint, the materials like the paint, sometimes the mulch if it's like over 3 or 4 yards. I explained that from the beginning. But if they just get the materials, me and my guys will take care of the rest. So those three things, again, pretty cost effective, and they can do so much for your home and add a ton of value.
Awesome. And what do you feel like is one of the biggest, or if there's multiple, let me know. Um, the biggest mistake people make when they are buying a home, or even selling their home. What's the biggest mistake people are making?
So the biggest mistake when buying a home is not being educated on the process. So a lot of people will be like, "Hey, I want to buy a house next month," and I'm like, "Well, if you wanted to buy a house next month, you should have started talking to me 3, 4, 5 months ago." A
Yeah.
lot of people don't realize a pre-approval is good for 120 days. Take advantage of all 120 days of that pre-approval, and if they need to, we'll issue a new one. I had a buyer who I was working with for 2 years. I mean, obviously, 2 years is a long time for a real estate agent to work with someone, but we don't care. I mean, we want to help you be educated on the process because God forbid, we do get you to the closing table in 1 month, which we have done. And then at the closing table, you have all these questions, and it's hard to answer all these questions at once. That's why we like to start you back here so we can get those questions cleared up. You understand what a monthly payment will look like. We understand what a good credit score will do to that monthly payment. And then if you give us that time, we're going to help you get all that stuff relegated. Like we're going to set you up with a credit guy who's going to fix your credit, who's going to help out with your interest rate. All those things are going to go into place. So the biggest mistake home buyers can do is just not being educated. And that's why if you want to buy a home in, let's say, 3 months, you need to reach out to a professional like myself or someone else in the industry at least 4, 5, 6 months. So we have time to get that process started, to get feelers out. I would hate, it happens sometimes, but I would hate for you to see a house and be like, dang, I wish I was ready. So we want you to be ready. We want you to be educated. And then on the flip side, the biggest thing a seller can do is sell it themselves. I mean, I see it all the time. And they don't get top dollar. They don't market the property correctly. They take pictures on their cell phone. You see like a thumb in all of them. It's like, what are we doing? And then they don't do the three things I talked about. I mean, the yard looks like it's in distress. The inside, you see blankets and pillows and kids' clothes and shoes all over the place. So the biggest mistake a seller can make is selling themselves. I mean, they think they're saving money, but at the end, their take home is way less than what it should be.
And so with your all the work you're doing, I mean, it definitely sounds like a lot. If you're painting, if you're doing the landscaping, if you're um, doing in addition to all the stuff, the contracts and everything else the realtor does, is that something you include like um, in the closing costs or in their loan, or is your fee separate?
So my fee as the realtor separate. You can now. They've made it a change a couple months ago, where you can, if you don't want to, like for the buying side, for instance, if you don't want to, so let me reverse a little bit. So on some homes now, the seller isn't obligated to pay the buyer's agent. So in that event, obviously we need to get paid. We don't work for free, and we've shown our value. We've taken you out. We've helped you get your credit under wraps. We've done all those things, and now we're at the closing table, and the seller has negotiated not to pay our broker fee. So before we even show a house, they need to sign a buyer broker agreement. And in that buyer broker agreement, there's a section that says buyer will pay agent X amount of dollars. And that amount can obviously be negotiated. But in that amount, obviously, we want to get the seller to pay. But if they do not, the buyer is responsible for that portion, and they can put it into their mortgage. So
Yeah.
in some cases, you can add on what would be, let's say, hypothetically $15,000. So it's a $15,000 realtor credit. Let's say the home is 750,000. You put 50 down, so you have a $700,000 mortgage. Now your mortgage is 715,000. So you would just pay off 715,000 because you didn't want to pay upfront the extra $15,000. So that's kind of how that can work. And then for the selling side, yes. So there's a couple packages I kind of present to my clients. If I walk in the home and the home doesn't need me at all, which obviously I want them to need me, but if it's like meticulously maintained and it's perfect, I'll just add a little value. I'll be like, look, maybe we could do this and this. And I have a professional photographer, a videographer. We're going to highlight all the key additions and features you made on the home. But if the home needs a lot of love, which I'd say 30% to 40% of the homes I sell need love,
Hmm.
which I love because you add your fingerprint on all of them. I would say on those homes, yes, my fee would be a little different than the meticulously maintained homes.
Got it. Okay. And so I appreciate you talking about that change in the you said a couple months ago with the seller or the buyer paying for the agent. I actually spoke with another realtor friend of mine on a different interview about this. Since that change has been made with the negotiating of that fee, because in my understanding, it was kind of always there in the contract, but now I guess it's negotiable. So
Yeah.
since that change has been made, have you seen a lot of people negotiating that, or are they just kind of doing business as usual for the majority of your clients?
Right. So I mean it is business as usual, but there is instances where you don't want your client to lose the home. And let's say your typical, I'm going to just use 2%. Let's just say your typical rate is 2%. But you've been showing this client, let's say 20 homes. They're great clients. They want this home. And I've done this too because I want to keep the ball moving. I don't want to not that you're wasting time on this one client, but you've already shown them X amount of homes and they've told you they really want this home. So what I've done on a particular home is I've lowered it by a 0.5%. So I've done it for 1.5%. I got the listing, it went under contract and it's closed. So I was able to beat out multiple contracts that had, I think she said there was 10 other offers. So it was like we were able, for me it would have been an extra couple $1,000s, but at the end of the day, what if I was showing them around for 4 more months, 6 more months? So I can't pick up more clients and I can't focus on other things that are going to help me make money. So yes, every deal, that's why I've explained to people, every deal is different. There's no transaction that is the same. Obviously, I'm going to try to fight for like I said, let's say it's 2%, but I can get 2.5%, I can get whatever it is, um, I don't I don't want to lose a client a home over, let's say, a couple $1,000s because I'm worried and I'm too prideful about making my set amount. I think you need to be aware that we're in a new marketplace, and you as a realtor now need to be negotiable. Obviously, our professional fee is our professional fee, but do you want to sell 100 homes at varying fee rates, or do you want to sell 10 at your set rate? To me, I'd rather sell 100 homes at a varying rate based on the client and the home and the demand, as opposed to 10 on that set 2.5%. So for me, I'm looking at it big picture here. I'm not worried about the standard, what it used to be. You got to change with the game. And that's kind of what I've been focusing on and how I've been able to be successful since these changes happened. I mean, I've heard of realtors that haven't sold a home since the changes came out. I mean, you need to change with the times. And obviously, again, I'm going to try to hold my hand on getting me the set rate, which is typically 2.5%. But if I want to win my client the home, and I've already been showing them homes for quite a bit, I'm willing to be negotiable. I want to keep the ball moving and move on to the next client and move on to the next client and move on to the next client. And it's not a transactional thing for me. I mean, I know I said that, move on to the next client, but this is all about relationships here. If I get my client the home, you don't think they're going to refer me because I beat out 10 other offers? Of course they are. And then that's going to be more deals. So just being that lifeline to them to show them, look, I'm here for you. I'm willing to do what it takes to get you in the home or to sell your home. And I lay that out all in the beginning. Like obviously, like I said, this is my set rate. But if we're in the gridiron and there's a bunch of other offers and you've told me you need this home and your kids start school in X amount of days, we're gonna get you this home. I'm gonna do what it needs to be done, and it's gonna happen.
That's awesome. And we've definitely seen a lot of those changes, even with my clients here over the past year, 2 years. We've got clients that come in and everyone's needs are different, right? We love to work with here at my office, just people that, it's their priority. Their health is their priority. Sometimes I'm sure as you experience in your field, right? Like, some people are just like looking to, see what houses are over there or out in the market versus possibly, somebody's like, I need a house in 3 months or 6 months or
Yeah,
something, or my family's moving to this area from out of state. We got a new job here. We need something by a certain date, right? So I'm sure you run into the same kind of thing where, you've got different types of clients that have different goals. Similar, in my business, I'm very transparent with people. I'm like, hey, listen, I'm going to do whatever is necessary to get you feeling better. If your
right,
goal is your health and you want to, have these certain health goals, a lot of times I refer out where I'm like, hey, listen, if this is not a priority to you, we may not be the best fit. So
right.
with those ever changing markets, especially with real estate, it's changed, over the past year. What are you saying? What are you seeing in this, Northern Virginia area? What are your clients' needs? How are they changing? How is the market changing? And then, how are you adapting your business to address that?
So the changes I'm seeing are a lot of the buyers that are out there. Some of them are either underqualified or overqualified, and I think you have to be able to find a nice median for whatever your client's needs are. So whether it's they're underqualified, finding them the right program as far as loan programs go, and that means you need to have the right lender on your side. So luckily I have my father, but I do know a couple other lenders, and it's just making sure that they understand, like I said from the beginning, being educated. So those underqualified buyers, just making sure they understand, like, hey, this is what your monthly rate's going to be, this is what your fees are going to be, is that something you're comfortable with? Like asking those questions so when it's time to go out in the marketplace, they're not like sticker shocked. And then for the clients that are overqualified, which we do see, I have a client who we're working with right now who impeccable credit, impeccable income, everything out of the roof, but they do want a little bit of help from us. And what I mean by that is he was like, look, I know 50 other realtors, and not that I wanted the business desperately, but he knows a ton of people. He's a great guy. So I cut him a break. I gave him so I got my full fee, like I said, but I gave him a little money on the back end because I know he's going to be a heck of a referral source. And he's not going to tell everyone, Andy gave me X amount of dollars. He's just going to say, Andy worked his butt off for me, and you should use him. He's a phenomenal realtor. So, like, again, I mean, every deal is different, and the changes that we're seeing are mostly the buyers. I mean, the sellers understand this marketplace, they understand the value a realtor brings, they understand, the changes happened. But a lot of times when I'm listing a home, I explain to them, you need to be aware that you should be negotiable. Um, Listing prices, or excuse me, contracts are going to come in, and their fees that are going to be set are going to be tried to negotiate it, because buyers don't also want to put a huge mortgage down and then have to pay. So the changes we're seeing on the buy side is kind of understanding what type of client you're working with. I never turn any clients away unless they're obviously not ready at all. I'm like, maybe we should rent for a year. I'll get them in a great rental, and then we can revisit this. But truly, the changes we're seeing are mostly on the buy side, with understanding the commission conversation. And also, we've changed the word commission to fee, professional fee. That's what they want us industry professionals to use now. So just being aware of the client you're working with. But on the sell side, I mean, seldom do you run into a seller that's not willing to be negotiable with a contract. You're going to find a lot of sellers that understand this realtor's bringing in the buyer, they're doing all the legwork, they're getting their clients to agree to terms. So, yes, they deserve their professional fee. So, really, there hasn't been a ton of setbacks on the sell side. I think it's the buy side, just being aware of the changes in this marketplace, understanding them, and getting them set up for success.
You brought up referrals, Andy, which I'm glad you did because I'm huge on referrals. That's how I built my practice as well. It sounds like you're doing the same. What do you feel like sets you apart from other realtors that has enabled you to have such a referral-based business that, you help out one client, they send you two or three more. What are the things that separate you from others that enables you to get so many referrals?
I know everyone says this, but I genuinely care. Like, I care about your well being, I care about your family. Um, Typically, I've now worked with you for 3 to 4 to 5 6 months, maybe. So, like, I know who you are as a person. I know what you enjoy, and I'm here for you. Like I said, I'm basically your therapist when you're calling me and telling me your needs and your wants and what you want in a home. So I genuinely care about my clients, and they can see that. I mean, they appreciate that when it's 9:30. Obviously, you have to set boundaries, of course, but when it's 9:30 on a, let's say, a Thursday, and you get a call and he's like, hey, I really got something going on, I got to talk. Like I said, we're almost like therapists. And I'm like, sure, man, give me a call. Like, obviously, you do have to set boundaries at times, but when it's a client who is a great client, and they just need a little bit clear understanding of what something is, or whatever the situation may be, just caring and being there for your clients and helping them in any way you can. And a big thing, if I can't help them with whatever their question is, I outsource. Like, I know a lot of contractors, like I said. I know a lot of professionals in the law industry, real estate law. Like, if it's a question I can't answer, I have the people that can plug me in with the right answer. So just being there for them, caring about their needs, and helping in every way possible. And then, to go back to my favorite quote, is under promise, over deliver, and create raving fans. And that's from a book I read. It's called 100 Times. It's just a wonderful book. I'll ping it to you when we're done. But that's what I've been big on since I read the book. Just don't give guarantees out in the beginning. Say, look, this is what I'm going to do for you, and then over deliver. Do all these extra things that they're going to be shocked by, and then you have a raving fan. And that's kind of what I try to do to create these constant referrals.
That's awesome. Because you do so much, Andy, you're not only doing all the things a typical realtor does, but then you're doing the landscaping or the extra things to make the house more sellable or more desirable for a potential buyer. Does that limit you on I mean, it sounds like a lot. I mean, I'm just listening to it all. Like, obviously, I know you've got I'm sure, a great team. So, how does your team come into play? And does that limit the amount of clients you can take on because of all the extra weight you're lifting?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I think I'm pretty good at managing my time and my expectations for my clients. So once we set that listing appointment down, I'll always at the end I lay out a nice timeline. So clear expectations of what's going to be done. Let's say I always put today's the listing appointment. The next thing on the schedule is we're going to do this. The next thing on the schedule, we're going to do this. And then, like, the third to final thing is pictures, and then deep clean, get a cleaner in there, and then we list it. So, like, I could have 10 listing appointments in a row, and I would lay out all of these expectations and these timelines with the clients. So it's not like, oh, I was ready to list my house tomorrow. Well, it's like, we can do that, but to get you top dollar, I want to lay out my timeline so we can get all these things done and we can get you the top dollar you're looking for. So just like managing expectations from the start, helping them understand the timeline. Obviously, I'll work around my client's timeline. Let's say they have a trip or they, can't do this or that. You can tweak the timeline, but I always set the timeline right after the listing appointment or right after a buyer consult, so they understand. It's like, oh, we haven't heard from Andy in 2 days. Well, it's because Andy's doing this. It's because this is what's the next step, and they know they have the timeline. I send it to them regularly. Um, so just kind of working around those timelines, and then again, I have 2 listings on the market, so I've managed the timelines in different days. So we're able to do this on this day and that on that day. So it's not like everything needs to happen on the same day. I mean, obviously in real estate, time is of the essence. That's a big phrase we use. But at the same time, I think taking your time and making sure the home is ready is also top of mind and top of the list.
And what if a seller's like, "Oh, Andy, I don't want you to do all this work. I can do the paint myself. I can do the landscaping myself." What do you say to sellers that, just want to do it all themselves? Or what have you found if you have said, "Okay, yeah, go ahead, do it yourself." What have you found with those people who try to do it themselves?
So the we call them hairy homeowners. The hairy homeowners that like to do it themselves, I I I obviously have to see their level of work. So I'll be like, all right, well, if you're gonna paint, let's do it on Tuesday. And I'll swing by on Wednesday, and then I can kind of get a good idea. It's like, all right, like, you're okay, but we're not trying to sell an okay home. We're trying to sell a wonderful home. So if you want to do it, that's fine. But I'm gonna check up on your work. It's like a teacher. I'm gonna see the quality of work you're putting out, and I'll be straight up with you. I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it like that. We're adults. You don't want someone to just lie to your face. I'm gonna tell you, Harry, this isn't your best work. We're gonna have to revisit this.
Yeah, yeah.
Come back and we're gonna touch this up. But I appreciate your effort. So that's kind of how I would handle that client.
In general, I'm assuming it's just better if you guys and your crew come in and do it because of the just attention to detail that is
Yeah,
required.
exactly. Like I said, I mean, now I'm in my 6th year, and before college crew, I've been maintaining homes for over 10 years. So I understand what needs to go into these homes and the level of care and what sellers want to see. I mean, before I became a realtor, I was working with dozens of realtors doing these type of jobs, and getting that stamp of approval, like, all right, now this home is selling ready. So just the overall experience that I've gained. I mean, we started college crew when I was 19. I'm 29 now, so 10 years of being in homes, seeing what needs to be done, and making them beautiful. It gives you that eye. Like, obviously, everyone's like, "Oh, I got the artist eye." Well, it's like, I got the home eye. I'm ready to tell you what needs to be done and when it's ready.
Awesome. With your experience, Andy, you've got a decade of experience in fixing up homes and now, doing real estate. What advice would you give to somebody else who possibly wants to get into either landscaping or real estate? What have you learned along the course of your years, the decade of experience you've got? What advice would you give?
Don't be afraid to ask questions. I think early on, I was like worried about asking questions and talking to some superior to me and just like looking silly by asking a question. Like, who cares? Who cares how someone else portrays you? Like, you need answers, and don't be afraid to ask questions. I mean, Now, like I said, I'm almost on my 6th year. I couldn't tell you how many times I call my broker a week. And I mean, I probably call her over 5 to 10 times a week just to talk and ask questions. I mean, that just shows you, like, no matter how far you're in this game, you're still going to ask questions. And if you don't start in the beginning asking questions, you're going to be so far behind, regardless of what industry you're in. We're all obviously scared and ashamed to ask a question, but you want to be on the right track. If you think you're doing something wrong and you're going to keep doing it, that's literally the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So you need to go into this with an open mind and kind of take the pride and wipe it off your shoulder and being like, all right, I'm going to be a ball of clay. I'm going to be moldable. I want to work hard and I'm going to ask as many questions as I can. And then when that clay figurine is built into someone strong, that's when I'm going to be like, all right, now I can go a little bit out more on my own. But until you have that foundation, you're not going to help yourself out.
I do find that a lot. Just coming into contact with a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, whether you're a small business owner or a real estate agent, anything like that. Why do you think that's so hard for people to ask for help? Or, what do you think it is? Or maybe, in your personal experience, Andy, what do you feel like has enabled you to ask so many questions or reach out to your broker or, not have that ego get in the way to, prevent you from growing?
I think you just nailed. I think it's ego. I think in the beginning you're like, I can do this on my own. I'm gonna like be able to figure this out. I got like not that you think you have all the answers, but you want to find all the answers. Well, sometimes it's just as easy as asking a question to get that answer instead of tripping 100 times to get to that answer. You'd save yourself time. You'd save yourself stress. Um, I don't understand it because I think a lot of the times people are too prideful. It's like when you go into Home Depot and you see all the dads just like going around each aisle not asking for help, and then they finally find what they're looking for. Dude, just ask the associate where it is and be out of here in 3 minutes. I mean,
That's me 100%. I'm always like, where's the Home Depot guy? Because I can't find this bolt and screw anywhere. And I'm like,
dude, same. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
imagine if we were both in there for 45 minutes, our significant others would be like, "Are they still at Home Depot?" It's
yeah.
like, well, I didn't ask for help,
That's
so
right. Don't
lost me
ask
a lot
don't ask for directions when you're lost driving your car, and don't ask the Home
of
Depot guy for help. Both my brothers are in construction, Andy, and it's hilarious because every time I'm in Home Depot, I FaceTime my brother. I'm like, "Hey, is this the part I need?" And I'm just
yeah,
FaceTiming him, and he's like, "No, no, no." And it's amazing because both my brothers are in Home Depot like 6 times a week, right? And so they're like, "You're on the wrong aisle. Go 3 aisles down. Go to the end of the aisle." And I'm like, "How do you know?" And you don't even know what
yeah,
Home Depot I'm at. And they're like, "Yeah, you're in the
right,
wrong section." I'm like,
yeah,
"Damn, dude."
exactly,
But it saves me an hour of my time searching
right.
around. You know what I'm saying?
You're a busy guy. Your time is your money. So if I'm not on to the next thing on my checklist for the day, I'm just wasting money essentially.
Awesome. Well, going back, a decade before you got into all of this, what's one piece of advice you would give to yourself? If you're young, if you were talking to your younger self now, your 18-year-old self, you just graduated high school, now that you've got a decade of experience, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Don't be afraid to fail. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many times in the beginning I was scared to even take a listing appointment or scared to call up a client or scared to go to a random event and talk to people. Like me and my brother's favorite saying, is get 10 no's, you're going to get a yes. One yes is all you need. Keep getting those no's, stack those no's. A yes is coming, and when you get it, it's going to hit hard. You're going to be like, "All right, this was worth it." So it's like being okay with failing, accepting defeat, and just like learning from it, I think is huge. I mean, early on, I would just be intimidated to fail. I mean, no one wants to fail. You're taught growing up, you get an F on a class, you have to retake it. No one wants to retake a class, so it's like, just be okay with it. We're in the real world now. You are gonna fail. There's gonna be days where you have an off day. Just be okay with it. Move on, learn from it, and grow. Don't dwell on it.
I tell my staff all the time. I call it rejection armor. I'm like, you've got to
Yeah,
have good rejection armor.
100%.
You got to be okay. If you don't ask, you don't know. And so I'm always telling my staff, ask them, if they've got a friend or a family that we can help out. What's the worst they're going to say? No. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that's okay. That builds your
That's
rejection armor,
yeah. That's
So I'm
good.
glad you brought that up because I'm always telling my staff, like, y'all need more rejection armor. You got to be
Yeah,
okay, you know.
exactly.
Um, well, what do you feel like, Andy, you've got the college crew was how you started. You've kind of morphed it into this real estate gig. What are some of the biggest maybe, it could be personal, it can be professional. What are the biggest things you're doing now that possibly, you were afraid to do 5, 10 years ago? Or what are some of the I always like to kind of get down to the brass tacks of things, because I feel like whether you're a small business owner, realtor, entrepreneur, anything, it's such a for me personally, it's been such a benefit. It's given me so much more confidence. It's given me so much more um, ability. I just feel like anything I set my mind to, I can accomplish.
Right.
What do you feel like you've learned from that rejection, from people saying no, over the past, 5 to 10 years? What qualities do you feel like, you've been able to accumulate, over that time?
Resiliency, just being resilient. Like you said, you're building armor. You're able to overcome adversity. So resiliency and overcoming adversity, and just again being okay with no, and just continuing to grow. Like you can never stop learning. Um, I even learned from new agents that have only been in the game for 1 year, than agents that have been in for 50 years. I mean, learn from everyone. You're going to get a little nugget from each person that you meet. So don't be afraid to learn. Like never stop learning. Whatever industry you're in, you're going to learn from a rookie, you're going to learn from a veteran, and don't be too prideful and say they haven't been in this as long as me. I'm not going to listen to them. It's like you might hear something they say that's like could be game changing for you, and you could walk away from it being glad that you had that conversation. So just continuing to grow and learn, being resilient and never stop, and just continuing to keep the ball moving. Like if you have a good month this month, if you don't keep working hard this month, you're not going to have a good month next month.
Absolutely. Well, it definitely shows your passion for what you do, Andy, and I love that. I myself, I get a lot of reward from my job as well when I can help a client. They've been in pain for 10 years, and we can get them out of pain, especially after they've tried X, Y, and Z treatment, and we're able to, help them overcome, the pain or the injury that they've healed from. What's the most rewarding aspect for you when you're working with your clients?
Just seeing that sense of, honestly, my favorite thing, there's two favorite moments, is that call I get to make, to the client. I always make sure the significant others in the room, and letting them know either A, your offer got accepted,
Nice.
and just like hearing that elation of being like, oh my God, like everyone in the back of the room, like cheering, getting excited. It's like when you call a draft pick on draft night and you're like, it's like hearing that is just like it's amazing. I mean, it's hard to explain because it's just so miraculous. And then on the other side of it, calling the seller, being like, "Hey, man, we got 5 offers to go through. Like, get ready to sit down and take your shoes off and crack a cold one because you crushed it. We crushed it as a team." And then after the closing table, asking for the review and hearing all the amazing things they have to say about you in person, but also online, like reading up on the review and being like, damn, like he said that, like, wow, that like touched my heart a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I do enjoy reading the Google reviews because I think people don't realize like we're working with these people for 6 months, 8 months, sometimes years, right? Like, and it's stressful. I think that's what makes it so rewarding, especially like I always tell my patient concierge when she's answering a phone and somebody's like, "Oh, I'm so scared to go to the chiropractor." I'm like, "Oh, give that patient to me." I'm like,
Yeah,
"That's my
yeah,
favorite person,"
yeah.
because when you can flip somebody's perspective and they're super afraid when they come in, they don't think, chiropractic works, and then a month later, they're like like you said, you're raving fans, right? Like those are my favorite patients, I'm sure similar with you when you've got the probably your most stressful clients or your most
Right.
difficult clients are the ones who maybe their house is completely, just in horrible condition. Those are probably the most rewarding homes for you to fix up and sell, probably.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just like seeing it from start to finish. I had a home in Great Falls that I sold last year. beautiful home, over $1 million, almost $2 million home. It needed a lot of love because they lived in it for 24 years. I think it was actually 26 years. That was their only home. You accumulate a lot of stuff over 26 years, and then there's some things you stop caring about, like the paint color or how much the bushes have overgrown. There's things that take priority, like family. And once you get to the finish line and they see, like, damn, do I want to sell this house? Like, it looks really nice now. And you're like, don't worry, we're gonna get you in something better. But like, yeah, seeing the client's face after the transformation is just also super rewarding and just humbling too, because it was like we made that happen as a team. Like they might have done some of the things, did some of the things, but like together we make a kick a team. Like I let my clients know, I'm like, you know, we're teams, we're teammates. Like we're gonna work together and get you to the finish line, because whether it's selling or buying, it's a stressful process, and I'm here to make it as seamless as possible.
And what's some of your future kind of plans, Andy? Any goals you've got for the landscaping and the real estate business in the next, I don't know, 6 months, next year?
Yeah, so I have a goal of 15 million. I'm right around, after my closings, I'll be right around 13 million. So there's only 2 months left in the quarter. It'll be close. I'll be cutting it close. I tried to set a hard goal. 15 million is obviously not an easy goal to hit. Um, I already hit 10 million, so I'm excited about that because that was like my soft goal. You got to have two goals. My soft goal was 10 million. 15 million was my huge goal. So for the next 3 months, I'm gonna keep grinding, trying to edge that out and get to that. That's kind of like my short term goal. My 6 month goal is, we just started a team, the AAA real estate team. We have 3 agents. We're adding on another. I'd love to get to 7 agents by the 6 month time. And I'd love to see that team continue to grow, because our I'm technically one of the team leaders, but our other team leader, he is in his 60s and he's going to be retiring, and he's got quite the book of business. I mean, he sells obviously under $1 million homes, but he typically only sells $1 million homes. And I want to show the team, like, if we continue to be a beacon of trust for other elderly agents, we're gonna get their books of business, and we're gonna really watch this thing grow and watch this business grow. So in short, to answer your question, to grow this team, watch us be more successful, which in turn will make us all more successful, because you wouldn't know how, I'm sure you do, because you work your butt off, but being around another great chiropractor or being around whatever it may be, how motivating it is, like seeing your coworker crush it. You're like, all right, I got to get back on the phone. I got to do this so you can start crushing it. So growing the team, which in turn will grow ourselves, and just watching the leaves change and becoming that best version of ourselves.
Awesome. All right, Andy. Well, let's help you hit your goals. What can we tell our listeners or our viewers? Do you have anything coming up? Any listings? Any big events coming up that we can, or how can people get in contact you if they're looking to buy or sell their home?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Andy Boone Sells. Please give me a follow. My website is andyboonerealestate.com. Check it out. See the projects we've worked on. There's several beautiful homes up there. And then I have a listing in Falls Church that's active. Just went on the market last weekend. Beautiful home, townhouse right near Crystal City. Great walkability, safe area. So if you're looking to buy in Falls Church, give me a ring. I also have a home in Herndon coming on the 17th of October. It's right in Hidden Brook, beautiful neighborhood, great safe area, good schools. So on the short, that's where you can look for wonderful homes. But if you're looking to buy and if you're looking to sell, just please give me a shout. I'd love to help out. I'd love to be that person of trust for you. I'd love to help out with you in the process and get this thing rolling. Because again, like I said in the beginning, if you want to buy in 3 months, we needed to have this conversation yesterday.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to buy, you're looking to sell, let's start the conversation, even if it's a year out. Like you said, also, I love those tough cases. Well, I love the clients that come to me early, and then I'm able to get them a house in that year time frame. And you've been working with them, helping them get a better credit and doing all those things. So if you're thinking about buying or selling, please give me a call. My number 703-350-2275. I'd love to help make it happen.
Awesome. One more question, Andy. What's like the average time frame? Like I know you've got people who want to sell immediately or people who are looking like a year out, but what in general for our viewers, like if they're looking to buy or sell, what's that time frame look like, average?
I'd say the average is probably 3 to 4 months, but we can get it done in a month. Like I said, it's just a little more stressful, but we can. I would say typically 3 to 4 months. So from first listing appointment to closing, I'm talking about when the documents are signed and you're getting your money 48 hours after. I would say that's probably about 3 months, from the first meeting to the closing date, because typically closing is about 30 days. And our process, if we do it quickly and efficiently, takes about 2 weeks. So that's already a month and 2 weeks without even being on the market. And then typically homes sell right now within 10 days. So on the short note, I'd say we would have from meeting to closing everything done in 2 months. On the longer term, 3 months. Um, that's what I can guarantee with that. And then for the buy side, traditionally that's about 3 to 4 months because that can take a little bit of trial and error. Let's say they have this huge variety of one they want to look at: Manassas, Woodbridge, Gainesville, Fairfax, Haymarket. We need to kind of narrow it down to see what you really want. After probably the first 2 weekends, 3 weekends, they'll be like, okay, Haymarket's out, Gainesville's out, Manassas is out. Let's focus on this Woodbridge area. We think it's awesome. So it's like just kind of narrowing down your idea of what you really want. I think is huge in that first couple weeks of buying a home. Obviously, I'm never anyone to narrow you in the beginning, but after like 2 weekends, I'm like, all right, like let's kind of narrow it down, peel back the layers of this onion, and then really find what you're looking for. And that typically takes about 2 weekends. And then you might, I'd say right now, it's typically your second or third offer because the market's still hot. But in November and December, you might win a home on your very first offer. But typically, it's 2 to 3 offers to get you a home, um, and that can take anywhere from 2 to 3 weekends. So the first weekend we missed the house, second weekend we missed the house, third weekend we're under contract, and then it already took 2 weeks to find you the area you wanted. That's already a month, and then it's a month from closing. So that's again 3 to 4 months typically on the buy side.
Cool. And with the landscaping and all of that you're doing, you're saying if you are selling a house, that 3 to 4 month period includes the work that you and your crew's got to do if it needs it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we would I'd lay that out in my timeline. We'd do A, B, and C, D. We'd schedule pictures. We'd schedule the cleaner. We'd do all those things, and then my listing date would be important too because that would be listed as well in my timeline. And then from there, I would give you an idea of when closing would take place, so they can start preparing mentally because obviously moving is a huge hassle, and you want to start chewing on the thought of wow, we're going to be out of here on November 16th. Like we need to get a move on. So just kind of like laying all that out and showing them what that timeline looks like. Yeah, I mean 3 to 4 months, 100% on the buy side or on the sell side. We'll have your home sold, get it cleaned up, get it organized, listed, and sold, so you can move on to the next property.
Awesome, awesome. All right, Andy. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I'm sure we'll get you some clients. I love that you have your soft goal and your hard goal, your reach goal. Hopefully, we can
Yeah,
help you reach your goals this end of this year, 2024.
that means a lot, Dr. Keith. I appreciate it, man. Always a pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks, brother.